A millionaire forced his son to marry a garbage collector to teach him a lesson. On the wedding day, the millionaire was shocked by what the garbage collector asked him for in return. The roar of a powerful engine echoed through the busy streets of downtown. Benjamin, who was only 30 years old, was the rightful heir to the city's largest real estate venture, a company founded by his father, Christopher. Benjamin drove his red sports car as if he owned the world. His brown eyes, hidden behind expensive sunglasses, barely bothered to glance at the pedestrians who scrambled out of the way, frightened. His impeccable Italian suit and gold watch screamed wealth and arrogance. As he sped up, ignoring the traffic lights, an arrogant thought crossed his mind. These poor people should thank me for bringing a bit of class to this run-down neighborhood. I don't understand why my father insists on keeping business here. We should tear everything down and build something worthwhile, he thought. Evelyn, a young woman of 25 years with hands calloused from hard work, was pushing her recycling cart along the narrow sidewalk. Her eyes, determined yet tired, scanned the ground for recyclable materials. Her simple, torn and worn-out clothes were a sharp contrast to the luxury displayed by Benjamin. Focused on her task and worried about her sick grandmother's health, Evelyn did not notice the speeding sports car approaching. She stepped into the street just as Benjamin turned the corner, distracted by his latest generation phone. If I don't make enough money this week, how will I buy Grandma's medicine? I can't let her suffer. She's all I have left in this world, Evelyn thought anxiously. She was trying to do everything she could to care for her sick grandmother, but the lack of financial resources seemed increasingly difficult to manage. The sharp screech of tires on asphalt made Evelyn jump back, her heart racing in her chest. The recycling cart tipped over, scattering cans and papers across the street. Benjamin slammed on the brakes, stopping inches away from hitting Evelyn. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Evelyn's wide, fearful eyes met Benjamin's, which were filled with rage. The silence was broken by Benjamin's deafening shout, "You idiot! Look at what you've done! You almost scratched my car with that trash you're carrying. Do you have any idea how much this vehicle costs? More than you could ever dream of earning in your miserable life." Christopher, Benjamin's father, had decided to walk home and unexpectedly witnessed his son arguing with the garbage collector from a distance. He had just left a business meeting in a nearby building when he heard the sudden screeching of brakes. His face, lined with worry, paled as he recognized his son's car. With hurried steps he approached, his heart heavy with a mix of shame and disappointment. My God, what did I do wrong? How can my own son be so cruel? This is not the upbringing his mother and I gave him. I need to do something before it is too late, Christopher thought bitterly as he rushed to reach his son and stop him from doing something even worse. Blinded by rage, Benjamin got out of the car, slamming the door hard. His face was red and a vein throbbed on his forehead as he advanced menacingly toward Evelyn. The young woman, still trembling, tried to gather her scattered belongings but stopped when she saw the fury in Benjamin's eyes. "You almost dirtied my car with those filthy clothes and that pile of trash you carry. I should sue you for emotional and material damages. People like you should be swept off the streets of this city. I will make sure to talk to the mayor and have these streets cleared of ragged, dirty people like you." Christopher, witnessing the scene with growing horror, felt his blood boil. He quickly moved forward, his imposing figure casting a shadow over Benjamin and Evelyn. His usually composed face was twisted in disgust and shame. With a swift movement, he grabbed Benjamin's arm, forcing him to turn and face him. Christopher's eyes, normally kind, now burned with an intensity that made Benjamin involuntarily step back. "That is enough, Benjamin. How dare you speak to another human being like that? Have you completely lost your mind?" Christopher's voice thundered, echoing down the street and drawing the attention of passers-by. Benjamin, momentarily stunned by his father's sudden appearance, quickly regained his arrogant posture. He pulled away from Christopher's grip, adjusting his expensive suit as if it had been contaminated. His eyes flashed with anger and defiance. "Father, you do not understand. This person almost destroyed my car. She has no right to be here getting in the way of decent people like us. Why are you defending someone like her?" he responded. Christopher felt a wave of nausea as he heard his son's words. He looked at Evelyn, who stood there, shocked and trembling, still surrounded by the scattered remnants of her dignity. Turning back to Benjamin, Christopher could barely believe the words coming from his son. "Decent people? You think your behavior is that of a decent person? Look at yourself, Benjamin. Really look at what you have become. A man who despises others based on their social status is not a real man, he argued. Feeling cornered, Benjamin resorted to the only defense he knew: attack. He gestured violently in Evelyn's direction, his face twisted into a mask of contempt. "How do you want me to respect this? Someone who lives off the garbage of others? Father, we built an empire. We cannot mix with this kind of people. They are the reason our neighborhoods are falling apart. If it were up to me, they would all be removed from the city." Christopher closed his eyes for a moment, as if Benjamin's words were physical blows. When he opened them again, there was a steely determination in his gaze. He stepped closer to Benjamin, determined to show his son that he was wrong. "Listen carefully, Benjamin, because I will only say this once. Your attitude disgusts me. You have become exactly the kind of person your mother and I have always despised. Arrogant, cruel, and completely blind to the value of human life." "This woman is a human being," Christopher responded, his voice low but loaded with authority. Then he turned to Evelyn. "What is your name, my dear?" he asked gently. Evelyn, still in shock, replied, "My name is Evelyn Allen, sir," she said, her voice trembling. "I am Christopher Evelyn. Forgive me for my son's rude behavior. I promise I will do everything I can to make sure he never treats people like this again. I will make Benjamin understand how to treat others," he promised. Benjamin tried to interrupt, but Christopher raised his hand, silencing him. "No, you will listen to me now. I made a mistake in your upbringing, and it is time to correct it. From now on, you have a choice to make." The air around them seemed charged with tension. Evelyn, momentarily forgotten, watched the scene with a mix of fear and fascination. Christopher continued, his voice gaining strength. "You will marry this young woman, Evelyn, and you will learn what humility and compassion are. You will live as she lives, work as she works, and maybe, just maybe, you will learn the true value of people." "Or—" Benjamin, incredulous, interrupted. "Or what, father? You cannot be serious." Christopher looked at him with unwavering firmness. "Or you will be disinherited completely. No access to a single penny of the family fortune, no car, no apartment, nothing. The choice is yours." A heavy silence fell over them. Benjamin looked from his father to Evelyn, his face a mixture of shock, anger, and for the first time fear. Then slowly, a disdainful smile began to form on Benjamin's lips. He laughed, a cold, humorless sound that made Evelyn shudder. "You really think you can blackmail me like this, father? Marry this?" He pointed at Evelyn with disdain. "I would rather live on the street than lower myself to this level. You cannot be serious. It must be a bluff." Christopher held his steady gaze, his determination evident in every line of his face. "It is not a bluff, Benjamin. It is a promise. You have 24 hours to decide. Marriage or disinheritance. There is no middle ground." Benjamin, still laughing, but with a hint of hysteria in his voice, turned his back on his father. "This is ridiculous. I am going home. When you come to your senses, call me." He walked toward his car, stopping only to cast one last look of disdain at Evelyn. "And you, beggar, consider yourself lucky I am not suing you. Count yourself fortunate." With that, he got into his car and drove away, leaving behind an exhausted Christopher and a stunned Evelyn. The sound of the sports car engine faded into the distance, but the tension in the air remained heavy and palpable, like the calm before a storm. Minutes later, Christopher entered his office, determination evident in every firm step. He walked directly to the phone, dialing the number of his legal team with tense fingers. As he waited for the connection, his eyes wandered around the room, settling on the family photos that adorned the walls, memories of happier times that now felt distant and unreal. The voice of the chief lawyer finally sounded on the other end of the line, and Christopher wasted no time on formalities. "I need you to prepare the documents immediately. I want the threat of disinheriting Benjamin to be legally binding. He has 30 days to marry Evelyn Allen or he loses everything." His voice did not waver, but his grip on the phone tightened enough to turn his knuckles white. "And add a secret clause, something that forces him to truly live this experience, not just pretend for convenience." The lawyer hesitated for a moment before responding. "Sir, are you sure about this? It is quite a drastic measure." Christopher closed his eyes, the weight of fatigue and disappointment pressing down on him. It is necessary. My son needs to learn a lesson before it is too late. While Christopher discussed the legal details, Benjamin burst through the office door, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. He had returned, unable to believe that his father would go through with the threat. His eyes narrowed as he saw Christopher on the phone, and he moved forward, gesturing violently. "Father, you cannot be serious. This is madness," Benjamin shouted, his voice echoing off the office walls. "You are really going to throw away years of hard work for our family because of some random garbage collector?" Christopher covered the mouthpiece of the phone, staring at his son with a mixture of sadness and determination. "Benjamin, it is exactly this attitude that makes me see why this is necessary. You need to learn the value of people beyond money." Realizing that the situation was more serious than he had thought, Benjamin changed tactics. His face softened and he approached Christopher with an almost pleading expression. "Father, please, let's talk about this. I understand that you want me to be more compassionate, but there are other ways. We can make donations, create charity programs. It does not have to be like this." Christopher studied his son, searching for signs of sincerity in his eyes. For a moment he hesitated. Could it be that Benjamin was truly willing to change? But then he remembered the scene on the street, the cruel disdain in his son's voice, and his resolve hardened. "No, Benjamin, words are not enough this time. You need to live, feel, experience. It is the only way you will truly understand." Christopher turned his attention back to the phone. "Have the documents ready by this afternoon. I want everything prepared as quickly as possible." Benjamin, seeing his last resort fail, exploded in a fresh wave of rage. He grabbed a statue from Christopher's desk and hurled it against the wall, the sound of the impact echoing through the room. "You will regret this. I am your only son, your heir. You cannot treat me like this." The sudden violence made Christopher rise abruptly, the phone falling from his hand. He stared at Benjamin, the disappointment clear in his eyes. "It is exactly because you are my son that I am doing this. I cannot let you become the monster I see in front of me." The words hit Benjamin like a physical blow. He stepped back, momentarily speechless. Christopher felt a sharp pain in his chest, the tension of the moment finally taking its toll. He raised his hand to his heart, his breathing becoming labored. "Father?" Benjamin's voice changed, the fear replacing the anger as he saw Christopher stagger. "Father, what is wrong?" Christopher tried to respond, but the words would not come. His vision darkened at the edges, and he felt his legs give out. The last sound he heard before losing consciousness was Benjamin's panicked shout for help. After that, everything happened too quickly. Christopher was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. The hours dragged on like an eternity in the sterile hospital corridor. Benjamin, still dressed in his now wrinkled suit, paced back and forth, his earlier arrogance completely replaced by a genuine and palpable concern. The smell of antiseptic and the constant sound of heart monitors in the background only heightened his anxiety. Doctors and nurses hurried past, casting sympathetic looks at the clearly distressed young man. Benjamin tried several times to get information about his father's condition, but he was met only with vague answers and promises that the attending doctor would speak with him soon. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the doctor, a middle-aged man with tired yet compassionate eyes, approached Benjamin. His grave expression made the young man's heart race. "Mr. Benjamin," the doctor began, his voice calm but serious, "your father's condition is critical. He suffered a severe heart attack, and we are doing everything we can, but the next 48 hours will be crucial." Benjamin felt his legs weaken, and he had to lean against the wall. "But he is going to be okay, right? I mean, he is Christopher, he is strong, he always," he said, leaving the question hanging in the air. The doctor placed a comforting hand on Benjamin's shoulder. "We are doing our best, but I must be honest. The situation is uncertain. Your father is in the intensive care unit, and we will need to monitor him closely. I suggest you prepare yourself for all possible outcomes." The doctor's words hit Benjamin like a punch to the stomach. For the first time in his life, he felt completely powerless. All of his money, all of his influence, none of it mattered now. He simply nodded silently, unable to form any words. In that moment of vulnerability, the family lawyer, Mr. Cooper, appeared in the hospital corridor. The doctor left the patient's son to speak privately with the lawyer, parting with the promise that he would do everything he could for his father. Minutes later, the lawyer, Mr. Cooper, turned to Benjamin with a concerned expression. "Mr. Benjamin, your father is stable but still unconscious. However, there is something you need to know." The lawyer opened his briefcase, revealing a legal document. "Before the incident, your father demanded that I change his will immediately. The conditions he mentioned are legally binding." Benjamin felt the blood drain from his face. "What? This cannot be legal. He cannot force me to marry." Mr. Cooper adjusted his glasses, his voice firm. "I'm afraid he can. You have 30 days to marry Miss Evelyn, or you will lose all rights to your inheritance. This includes your position in the company, your bank accounts, properties, everything." Benjamin sank into the chair, his mind spinning with the implications. "This is a nightmare. There has to be a way around this." The lawyer hesitated, then continued. "There is not. If you do not marry her, you will lose the right to your inheritance and will no longer be able to manage the family businesses. I'm sure your father will recover, but I suggest you do what he asks, as you will not even be able to hold your position if you do not comply with what is in the will," the lawyer responded, making it clear there was no room for negotiation. The next day, still worried about his father, Benjamin drove his luxury car through the narrow, poorly maintained streets of the poor neighborhood, his face twisted in an expression of disgust and discomfort. As he carefully maneuvered to avoid potholes in the street, he could not imagine marrying a garbage collector. "How does my father expect me to live in this filthy place? This is too cruel, even for a moral lesson," he thought bitterly. He had been given Evelyn's address, but she was not at her house. After several minutes of fruitless searching, Benjamin finally spotted a small makeshift playground. There, in the middle of a group of ragged children, was Evelyn. He parked the car and reluctantly got out, adjusting his expensive suit as if it were armor against the poverty around him. He cautiously approached, watching Evelyn interact with the children. She was smiling and helping a little girl tie her shoelaces. The scene caught him off guard. Evelyn's kindness and compassion were evident, sharply contrasting with the image he had built of her. Benjamin found himself momentarily speechless, his usual arrogance shaken by the genuine display of kindness. He shook his head, trying to push these unwanted thoughts away. "Do not be fooled, Benjamin. She is probably doing this just to look good. People like her always have an angle." Gathering his courage and reassembling his expression of disdain, Benjamin finally approached the group. The children, noticing his presence, instantly went quiet, their wide eyes fixed on him with a mix of curiosity and fear. Evelyn, sensing the change in the atmosphere, turned around, and her face paled as she recognized Benjamin. He cleared his throat, uncomfortable under their stares, and addressed Evelyn in a forcibly controlled voice. "Miss Evelyn, I need to speak with you. In private." Evelyn hesitated, her eyes narrowing with a mixture of distrust and anger. She stood up slowly, placing herself protectively in front of the children. "I have nothing to say to you, sir. Please leave. Your presence is scaring the children," she responded firmly. The tension in the air was palpable, and Benjamin could feel the hostile gazes of the locals who were beginning to gather around them. He took a step forward, lowering his voice in an attempt to seem less threatening. "Look, I know we got off on the wrong foot, but some things have happened and, well, we need to talk. It is important." As he spoke, Benjamin noticed that more and more people were approaching, forming a circle around them. Hard, distrustful faces stared at him, some whispering to each other, others with clenched fists. A tall, muscular man stepped forward, his voice filled with menace. "Hey, are you not that rich guy who humiliated Evelyn the other day? What do you think you're doing here? Are you looking for trouble?" the man asked, with a thinly veiled threat. Benjamin felt a chill of fear run down his spine. He was surrounded, and for the first time in his life, his money and status could not protect him. He looked at Evelyn, a silent plea in his eyes. The circle of hostile people was closing in, and Benjamin could clearly hear the murmurs of anger and the veiled threats. His heart raced, and he realized he was completely out of his element. With a trembling voice, he made one last attempt. Please, Evelyn. I just need 5 minutes of your time. After that I will leave, I promise. Evelyn watched the scene unfold, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. On one hand, the anger and hurt from Benjamin's earlier treatment still burned in her chest. On the other hand, the plea in his eyes and the evident fear in his posture stirred an involuntary sense of compassion. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and then stepped forward, placing herself between Benjamin and the threatening man. "Stop! Do not hurt him," she said, her voice firm and clear, surprising everyone, including herself. "We are not violent people. We will not lower ourselves to his level." She turned to Benjamin, her eyes hard. "You have 5 minutes, not a second more." Benjamin felt relief flood his body, but he kept a rigid posture, trying to regain some of his lost dignity. He shot a look of disdain at the crowd before following Evelyn to a more secluded corner of the park. The children watched curiously, some still holding their broken makeshift toys. Once they were out of earshot of the others, Benjamin began to speak, his voice a mixture of arrogance and discomfort. "Look, I did not want to come back here, but something happened. My father, he had a heart attack." He paused, hoping to see some sign of sympathy on Evelyn's face, but she remained impassive. Frustrated, he continued, "The thing is, before that he changed his will, and now, well, I need to marry you." Evelyn blinked, incredulous, her mouth opening in shock. For a moment she was speechless, trying to process the absurdity of the situation. When she finally spoke, her voice was a mix of indignation and disbelief. "You are joking with me, right? Is this some kind of sick joke?" Benjamin frowned, irritated by her reaction. "Believe me, I wish it were. But it is the truth. If I do not marry you in 30 days, I lose everything. The company, the money, everything. Look, I know we did not start off well, but think of this as an opportunity. You would never have to worry about money again," he said, trying to keep his frustration in check. Evelyn felt anger rise inside her, her hands clenching into fists. "An opportunity? You think you can just come here after publicly humiliating me and offer me money as if that fixes everything? I'm not for sale, sir. My dignity is worth more than all of your money." She stepped toward him, her eyes blazing. Benjamin stepped back, surprised by the intensity of Evelyn's response. He was not used to being rejected, especially not by someone he considered beneath him socially. His face twisted in a mixture of anger and confusion. "You do not understand. I am offering you a life you could never have otherwise. Think of the life you could live with all this money. You could stop wearing those torn clothes, stop collecting trash on the streets, and live in comfort." He gestured, trying to make his point. Evelyn felt tears of frustration forming in her eyes, but she held them back. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself before responding. "You really do not get it, do you? It is not about the money. It is about respect, about dignity. Things you clearly do not—" She stopped abruptly, her face paling. Benjamin followed her gaze and saw an elderly woman slowly approaching, supported by a cane. The woman looked frail, her breathing labored. Evelyn rushed to help her, momentarily forgetting about Benjamin. "Grandma, what are you doing here? You should be resting," Evelyn said, the concern in her voice palpable. The elderly woman smiled weakly at Evelyn, then looked curiously at Benjamin. "Who is this young man, dear? Is he bothering you?" the elderly woman asked, her voice weak but with a protective note in it. Evelyn shook her head, casting a warning glance at Benjamin. "No, Grandma, he was just leaving." She turned to Benjamin, her voice low and urgent. "You need to leave, now." Benjamin, however, did not move. His eyes were fixed on Evelyn's grandmother, noticing the tremors in her hands, the paleness of her skin. An idea began to form in his mind, one that made him uncomfortable, but could be his only chance. He cleared his throat, trying to sound casual. "Your grandmother does not seem very well. Has she been getting proper treatment?" Evelyn glared at him, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "That is none of your business. Please, just go." But Benjamin could see the concern in her eyes, the barely concealed fear, and in that moment he knew he had found his bargaining chip. Despite Evelyn's protests, Benjamin followed the two women into the small apartment where they lived, his cold eyes calculating every detail of the miserable surroundings. The grandmother's room, although clean, exuded poverty and despair. While Evelyn lovingly cared for her grandmother, Benjamin felt a malicious smile forming on his lips. He had found the perfect weakness to exploit. He cleared his throat, catching Evelyn's attention. "We need to talk." In private. In the narrow hallway, Benjamin approached Evelyn, his voice low and threatening. "Your grandmother will not last long without proper treatment, will she? I can change that. The best doctors, the best hospitals. All you have to do is marry me and do exactly as I say," he argued, seeing the shock in Evelyn's eyes but remaining relentless. Evelyn stepped back, horrified by Benjamin's coldness. "You are a monster. How can you use my grandmother's life like this?" Benjamin smiled, a smile that did not reach his eyes. "I am not a monster. I am a businessman, and this is the best deal you're going to get. Your grandmother lives and you do what I say." Evelyn felt the crushing weight of the decision. She looked toward the room where her grandmother lay, fragile and sick, and felt tears burn in her eyes. She turned to Benjamin, defeated. "If I agree, do you swear you will save my grandmother? She is my only family. If you want me to marry you, I need your guarantee that you will save her." Benjamin was shocked. Evelyn could have asked for something luxurious, a fortune, but the only thing she asked for was to save her grandmother. After recovering from the shock, he nodded, his eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. "Of course. She will have the best treatment money can buy, and you, my dear, will be the perfect obedient wife." Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling as though she was selling her soul to the devil. "I agree, but know that every moment of this marriage, I will hate you with every fiber of my being." Benjamin laughed softly, a cold sound that made Evelyn shiver. "Hate, love. What difference does it make? The important thing is that you will do exactly what I want." As they explained the situation to Evelyn's grandmother, Benjamin was already planning how he would use this marriage for his own selfish purposes. Not only would he save his inheritance, but he would also gain a tool to manipulate and control. At that very moment, on the other side of the city, in a hospital room, Christopher awoke from his coma. His eyes opened, slowly focusing on the room around him. With surprising strength, he grabbed the arm of the nearby doctor, his voice hoarse but determined. "Benjamin, the wedding. I need to see it happen." What Christopher did not know was that his plan to teach his son a lesson was about to turn into something far more sinister and dangerous than he could ever have imagined. Weeks later, the church hall was decorated with expensive flowers and elaborate arrangements, a stark contrast to the bride waiting in the back. Evelyn nervously adjusted her worn-out dress, the mended seams and faded fabric, a deliberate choice for this day. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the simple necklace her grandmother had given her, the only accessory she had chosen to wear. Outside, she could hear the buzz of the wealthy and influential guests, all eager to witness the unusual wedding of Benjamin, one of the richest men in the city. Evelyn closed her eyes, taking a deep breath to calm her nerves. "I am doing this for Grandma. She has already received treatment and is out of danger. I just need to fulfill my part of the deal and endure until the end," she whispered to herself. Benjamin waited at the altar, his immaculate suit sharply contrasting with his pale and tense face. His eyes restlessly scanned the crowd, lingering momentarily on his father, Christopher, sitting in the front row. The unexpected presence of Christopher, recently out of the hospital, added an extra layer of pressure to an already tense situation. His father had been released from the hospital only a short time ago, but he would need continued medical care due to his fragile health. Benjamin adjusted his tie, feeling it tighten like a noose around his throat. His thoughts were a whirlwind of future plans and manipulations, but also of growing fear. What if she backs out at the last moment? My whole plan will fall apart, he thought, his heart racing at the possibility. The wedding march began to play, and all heads turned toward the entrance of the church. Evelyn appeared walking down the aisle alone. Her steps were slow and measured, each one a battle between the urge to flee and the need to move forward. The shocked murmurs from the guests upon seeing her simple, worn and torn outfit, instead of an elegant wedding gown, were like needles in her ears, but she kept her chin up, her eyes fixed on Benjamin. Evelyn had chosen to wear her everyday clothes to teach Benjamin a lesson about respect for poorer people. He would marry her just as he had first seen her. As she passed Christopher, she noticed the look of surprise and what seemed like disgust on his face. Evelyn reached the altar, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at Benjamin, seeing the mixture of discomfort and calculation in his eyes. "Remember why you are doing this. For Grandma, for her health. You can endure anything for her," she reminded herself. The priest began the ceremony, his voice echoing through the silent hall. Benjamin and Evelyn stood side by side, an invisible chasm between them. As the priest spoke of love and commitment, Evelyn let her mind wander to the past few weeks. Her grandmother's treatment, the best doctors, the expensive medications, all provided by Benjamin just as he had promised. She remembered the nights spent by her grandmother's bedside, watching her gradually improve, growing stronger day by day. The gratitude for this chance at healing was bitterly mixed with the hatred she felt for Benjamin and the situation she found herself in. Christopher watched intently from his seat, his eyes moving from Benjamin to Evelyn, an enigmatic expression on his face. He murmured to himself, "Maybe there is hope for him after all. Evelyn made an excellent choice of outfit to show my son that simple people, regardless of what they wear or have, deserve respect." Finally, the crucial moment arrived. The priest turned to Benjamin, asking the fateful question, "Benjamin, do you take Evelyn as your lawful wife to love and honor her, in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty, until death do you part?" Time seemed to freeze. Benjamin felt the weight of all eyes on him, especially his father's. His gaze moved over Evelyn, lingering on the worn and mended clothes she had chosen to wear. A flash of disgust crossed his face, quickly replaced by a mask of indifference. "How dare she show up like this? She is doing this on purpose to humiliate me," he thought, feeling a mixture of anger and revulsion. His eyes then met Evelyn's. Where he expected to see defiance, he saw only fear, a deep and palpable fear of being rejected right there at the altar, in front of everyone. For a brief moment, Benjamin hesitated. The vulnerability in her eyes caught him off guard, making him question his own intentions. But then he remembered his plan, the inheritance, everything that was at stake. Sadness and disappointment flooded Evelyn's face as she waited for his answer. This was no fairy tale and there would be no happy ending, but it was a choice they had both made, for very different reasons. In a firm voice, devoid of any genuine emotion, Benjamin finally answered, "I do." Minutes later, the reception hall glittered with luxury and opulence, a stark contrast to the bride's simplicity. Evelyn, still in her mended and simple attire, moved through the crowd like a ghost, disconnected from the lively conversations and the clinking of champagne glasses. Her eyes searched constantly for Benjamin, who was surrounded by executives and socialites. Finally, seeing an opening, she approached, her heart pounding in her chest. Benjamin saw her coming, barely able to hide his discomfort and irritation. "Benjamin," Evelyn began, her voice surprisingly steady, "I would like to thank you for the treatment you provided for my grandmother. She is recovering well." Evelyn paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "But I also came to say goodbye. I cannot continue with this charade." With trembling hands, she held out an envelope to Benjamin. "Here is my explanation and my renunciation of any claim to your fortune." Benjamin took the envelope, confused and irritated. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" Evelyn looked him straight in the eyes, her voice filled with emotion. "Read the letter, Benjamin. Maybe then you will understand the true value of people." With those words, she turned and walked toward the exit, leaving a stunned Benjamin behind. Benjamin opened the envelope with trembling fingers, unfolding the carefully written letter. As his eyes moved across the lines, his expression shifted from anger to shock, and then to deep confusion. He read the letter aloud, unable to believe what was happening. "Dear Benjamin, first, I want to express my sincere gratitude for my grandmother's treatment. Your generosity, even if forced, saved her life, and for that I will be eternally grateful. However, I cannot continue with this arranged marriage. From the moment we met, you made your disdain for me, for poor people, and for my situation clear. You only see the outside, the worn clothes and the lack of material possessions. What you fail to see is that a person's true wealth lies in their character, not in their bank account. I grew up with little, but I was rich in love and values. My grandmother taught me the importance of honesty, hard work, and compassion. These are the true treasures I carry with me, and no amount of money can buy them. You wanted to marry me to keep your inheritance, but in the process, you revealed a poverty of spirit that no fortune can hide. The cruelty with which you treat those you consider beneath you is a reflection of your own insecurity and lack of character. Therefore, I am withdrawing from this agreement. I neither want nor need your fortune. I prefer my simple, honest life over living a lie and luxury by your side. I hope this experience opens your eyes to the true value of people, regardless of their social class. True nobility does not lie in a name or a bank account, but in actions and character. Maybe one day you will learn that respect and compassion are worth more than any amount of money. Until then, I wish you peace and hope you learn to see beyond appearances. Sincerely, Evelyn. As Benjamin read, his face went through a range of emotions: anger, confusion, and finally, a flicker of something that seemed like shame. He looked around, suddenly aware of the curious stares from the guests. Christopher approached, noticing the distress on his son's face. "What happened, Benjamin? What is this letter you are holding? Where is Evelyn?" Christopher asked, concerned. Benjamin stared at his father, his voice trembling slightly. She left. She gave up everything. She said she prefers her simple life over living with me." In that moment, for the first time in his life, Benjamin felt the weight of his actions and attitudes. Evelyn's letter had touched something deep within him, something he had not known existed. He abruptly turned, leaving his father confused, and ran toward the exit of the hall. His thoughts were a whirlwind. What have I done? Who have I become? With that, Benjamin began running through the city streets, his expensive suit now wrinkled and dirty, the fine leather shoes hurting his feet, which were unaccustomed to long walks. Night was falling, bringing with it a cold breeze that made him shiver. He passed through dark alleys and poorly lit streets, areas of the city he had never even thought to visit before. His eyes scanned every corner, desperately searching for Evelyn, his wife. The reality of life on the streets hit him like a punch to the stomach. The smell of garbage, the distant sound of sirens, the wary looks from people passing by. How can someone live like this? How could she give up the money I have to live this way? And to think I treated Evelyn as if she were less than me, he thought, feeling a mixture of fear and shame. After hours of fruitless searching, Benjamin finally spotted a familiar figure rummaging through a trash bin on the corner of a narrow street. His heart leaped as he recognized Evelyn, still wearing the same worn-out clothes from the wedding. He cautiously approached, watching her sift through the garbage with a skill that surprised him. Evelyn found a half-eaten sandwich, and for a moment, Benjamin thought she might eat it immediately. To his astonishment, she turned and offered the sandwich to a homeless man sitting on the nearby sidewalk. The man accepted it with a grateful smile, and Evelyn continued her search, ignoring the sounds of her own stomach growling. Benjamin felt a wave of admiration and shame wash over him. She is hungry, yet she still thinks of others first, he reflected, feeling smaller than ever. Summoning all his courage, Benjamin approached Evelyn. She saw him and froze, her eyes widening in surprise at the sight of him before narrowing with suspicion. Before she could say anything, Benjamin spoke, his voice trembling with emotion. "Evelyn, I am sorry. For everything. You were right about me, about who I am. But I want to change, I want to understand, I want to see the world through your eyes. I do not want to be this way anymore. Your letter made me realize how misguided my values were. Can I help you continue collecting trash? Teach me how to do this, how to live as you live," he said, his voice firm. Evelyn stared at him for a long moment, searching his eyes for any sign of insincerity. Finally she spoke, her voice a mix of exhaustion and skepticism. "Why should I believe you, Benjamin? You made it very clear what you think of people like me." Benjamin felt the weight of her words, but he did not back down. He took off his expensive jacket and tossed it into a nearby trash bin. Then he rolled up the sleeves of his shirt and crouched down beside Evelyn. "Because I am willing to learn, to change. You showed me who I am in that letter, and I do not want to be that person. So show me what your life is like, Evelyn. I want to understand, truly understand." With hesitation, Evelyn nodded and began to explain the process of sorting recyclable materials. Benjamin listened intently, his clumsy hands trying to mimic her precise movements. With each passing minute, a new understanding began to form in his mind. The work was hard, dirty, and often humiliating, with people passing by and casting looks of disdain. But Benjamin persisted, determined to prove his sincerity. After a few hours, his hands were dirty and scratched, his body aching. But a new light shone in his eyes. He turned to Evelyn, his voice filled with a newfound humility. "Evelyn, I know I do not deserve your forgiveness or your trust. But if you give me a chance, I would like to live a simple life by your side. Not for money or status, but to learn how to be a better person, like you. I want to make up for my mistakes and see the world as you see it. Would you take me back, not as a rich man, but as someone willing to learn and change?" Evelyn looked at Benjamin, her eyes reflecting a mix of emotions, surprise, skepticism, and a spark of hope. She observed his hands, now dirty and calloused, so different from the soft, well-cared-for hands she had known before. For a moment, she remained silent, weighing his words and actions. Finally, with a deep sigh, she spoke. "Benjamin, your words are nice, but words are easy. Living this life day after day is something entirely different. Do you really understand what you're asking for?" Benjamin nodded, his face showing a determination Evelyn had never seen before. "I know it won't be easy, Evelyn, but I am willing to face every challenge. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to become the kind of person who deserves your respect." As they spoke, the night wore on, and Evelyn began to gather the recyclable materials they had collected. Benjamin, remembering the last time he had been at Evelyn's apartment, hesitantly asked, "Evelyn, I know I have no right to ask this, but may I go with you? I really want to understand how you live day by day." Evelyn considered for a moment, then reluctantly nodded. "All right, but do not expect any luxury. You have already seen how it is there." Together, they made the familiar journey to the old building where Evelyn lived. As they climbed the stairs, Benjamin noticed details he had not seen before. The unstable railing, the damp stains on the walls. Each step felt like a lesson in humility. When they entered the small apartment, Evelyn's grandmother greeted them with a surprised look upon seeing Benjamin again. She was sitting in a worn-out armchair, but she appeared much healthier than the last time Benjamin had seen her. "Hello, young man, I did not expect to see you here again," she said, her voice filled with curiosity. Benjamin felt a wave of shame as he remembered how he had behaved on his previous visit. "Good evening, Mom." I came to learn," he responded respectfully. Evelyn briefly explained the situation to her grandmother, including the story of the wedding, which left her grandmother shocked. Benjamin stood awkwardly, feeling the weight of both women's gazes. The apartment seemed even smaller than he remembered, each object telling a story of struggle and perseverance. "I can sleep on the couch, it is not much, but it is what we have," Evelyn said, pointing to the worn-out piece of furniture that Benjamin remembered well. As Evelyn prepared the couch with clean but worn sheets, Benjamin offered to help with any household chores. He felt awkward and out of place, but was determined to show that he was genuinely willing to change. Later, lying on the narrow and uncomfortable couch, Benjamin reflected on how drastically his life had changed in such a short time. The silence of the apartment was broken only by the occasional sounds of the city outside and the creaking of the old building. It was a completely different world from his own, and yet there was a peace here that he had never experienced before. "Evelyn, I know I have said this before, but I want you to know that I mean it. I have a long way to go, but I will work hard every day to become a better person, to see the world the way you see it, to help others the way you do. No matter how long it takes, I will prove that I can change," he whispered into the darkness, believing that she could not hear him. However, in the next room, Evelyn heard Benjamin's words. She did not respond immediately, but something in her expression softened. That night, in the simple apartment that Benjamin had once despised, something began to change between them. It was not love, not yet, but it was the beginning of understanding, of mutual respect that could, with time and effort, grow into something deeper. In the months that followed, Benjamin fully embraced his new life alongside Evelyn. What had started as a lesson in humility turned into a journey of self-discovery and redemption. Benjamin learned to appreciate the small things in life, the taste of a simple meal shared, the satisfaction of a day's honest work, and the richness of genuine human connections. Evelyn, initially skeptical, saw the genuine change in Benjamin. She taught him how to manage money wisely, to find joy in simple things, and to connect with the community. Together they expanded the recycling project, creating jobs for people in need and promoting environmental awareness. Evelyn's grandmother, now recovered and full of life, became a maternal figure to Benjamin. Her life stories and wise advice helped him better understand the value of perseverance and compassion. She often joked that Benjamin was the grandson she never had, and he in turn found in her the familial affection he had always longed for. Christopher, seeing his son's transformation, also went through his own journey of self-discovery. Impressed by Benjamin's dedication to his new life, he decided to become more actively involved in his son's social projects. Father and son, once distant, now worked side by side to make a difference in the community. Benjamin used his business experience to turn the family's fortune into a force for good. He established a foundation dedicated to improving living conditions in poor neighborhoods, providing affordable housing, education, and employment opportunities. The foundation, once a symbol of corporate greed, became a model of social responsibility. 1 year after the fateful wedding day, Benjamin and Evelyn renewed their vows, this time by their own choice. The ceremony was simple, held at the community center they had helped build. Christopher, emotional, walked Evelyn down the aisle, while her grandmother watched with tears in her eyes. In the years that followed, Benjamin and Evelyn continued to live a modest life, but one rich in purpose and love. They had 2 children, raised to value people over material possessions. The children grew up knowing both the value of hard work and the importance of compassion and generosity. The neighborhood where they lived flourished thanks to the couple's continued efforts and the foundation. Parks were built, schools were renovated, and job training programs gave many new opportunities. Benjamin and Evelyn were well-known and loved figures in the community, always ready to listen, help, and inspire. Christopher moved closer to his son and daughter-in-law. He found peace and purpose by getting involved in community projects and being a present grandfather. Evelyn's grandmother, a constant source of wisdom and love, became the heart of the family. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Benjamin surprised Evelyn with a special gift, the deed to a new recycling and environmental education center named in honor of her grandmother. The center not only created jobs, but also became a model of sustainability for the entire city. Reflecting on his journey, Benjamin realized that true wealth was not in the material possessions he once valued so much, but in the lives he and Evelyn had touched, the changes they had promoted, and the love they had built together. He understood that the lesson his father had tried to teach him years ago was not about losing his fortune, but about gaining something much more valuable, a compassionate heart and a life with purpose. As the sun set over the city they loved so much, Benjamin and Evelyn sat on the porch of their modest home, holding hands, watching their children play in the yard. The foundation now meant something completely different. It was no longer a symbol of wealth and power, but a beacon of hope and positive change. And for Benjamin, this was the true happy ending he never knew he wanted, but one he would not trade for anything in the world. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing you touching stories almost every day. Do not miss the next surprising narrative that is about to appear on your screen. We are immensely grateful to have you here with us. Now you can click on the links appearing on the screen right now. We have a special selection just for you, filled with valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. See you there.